years, and we saw a lot of, we actually watched an eagle take a fish out of an egret, because they go down and get them, and then they grab them away from them. We saw that happen, yeah.
Eagles.
They're only four?
Oh, I don't
No,
need one.
the
That's
Medina's
okay.
only
I
four.
prefer not to have
Because
one
I-
sitting here because I don't
I
have to
don't
get
know. I
go
guess
anywhere.
with
So
Dan, there's no name tag. I'm assuming she's down
You
south.
have to have four, right?
Yeah, you have to have four, and then they all have to
Yes,
vote.
we have exact. So if you guys want to make sure nothing gets done, all one of you has to do is be real contrary.
Right.
Because it takes 4 affirmatives
To,
to pass.
to pass anything.
Well, I thought it was just.
You can.
More affirmative. It's not just a majority of the quorum present.
They have, I have to go, gotta go out and have a conference here. Let's see.
Just majority of those present. Oh, it is majority of those present. Yeah.
We'll see what.
Hello, good evening.
We'll see what you let Van Buren Township.
That primarily comes into the.
Hello, hello.
How are you doing?
How you doing? Yeah, nice to see you.
No, the majority of those present. So one of you can go contrary.
That's fine. So I'll fill you in. So we're working on a bill right now. It would increase tipping fees.
I put the zoning
Right now,
ordinance
the state's only getting $10 a ton for hazardous waste, which is like way below the Midwest average. Even we're gonna go up to
And
$25.
every Saturday, sitting
And
outdoors
right now,
for 10 to 12
I'm
hours
just trying
for
to
my
figure out the
son's
percentage
practice.
because our proposal is we're gonna do 25% back to the locals.
Just watching it is so
So I wanna make
exhausting.
sure
I sleep
that's
like
not
I'm
a
dead at
cut
night as though
for
I
you,
ran.
basically. So it would work out to
Teachers
like
chat with the other parents
$6.25
and
per
eat
ton,
nonstop because there's nothing else
is
to
what
do
this
between the
is for
races.
the local would be getting, and then
Exhausting.
16.25 to the state.
But
up
he's
from
doing
the
well,
10
it's fine.
that they're currently getting.
Yeah, I'd be all right with it. But okay, cool.
Exactly.
To run for an NCAA college.
Exactly.
So
Okay, cool.
Make sure we're
What
not.
are you doing here tonight? Oh, you're here as the applicant on one of them.
Run the applicant and review.
Thought I recognized that penmanship.
I'm a terrible chicken scratcher.
Right.
You know, today, since you're,
Yeah.
if you guys have any
you're the
questions,
presenter.
doing some comments, I'll set up the secretary. Ronald, yeah, Ronald kind of run the presentation, and you can probably just be an audience for it.
No problem. Do you have what you need there?
yes, I do. Thank you, Dan. I just saw the number of colored pictures and my cartridge can't handle it. Hi, Rob. Good.
Pardon?
I may, as long as you're okay.
Okay, you guys.
Getting ready?
No, no, I'm perfectly cool.
Got a couple minutes.
Today is
Hey, today's the 10th, right?
I just said the exact same thing. I'm like, today's the 10th, right?
He's gonna call. He's gonna call.
Okay. I don't think you're gonna make it. But they're going ahead for tomorrow.
And that's it, right? Summer just comes like this and goes away, and then the miserable
On
winter
Friday.
lasts for them.
Friday.
After.
Yeah. Okay, good.
I don't know why it's upside down. Wish I could tell you.
Some days feel like that.
Hi, Wade. Good, how are you?
Dan, maybe the cable's plugged in upside down.
Didn't it?
Just kidding, fix it. I would believe you if you gave me advice like that. Much,
We're upside down.
Mr. Chair. That's one thing. It's 5:30, but we'll take a minute to get the technical issue resolved.
is on a swivel. No, I don't think it is. I don't think it is.
I think this way, but I don't think, oh.
There is a magic keystroke that'll make it flip upside down, and I couldn't tell you what it is.
I'm just doing projection. That I'm not sure about. Control Alt.
Might be the last one to go over and tell them what to do with it.
Yeah, I was gonna just connect to mine with the remotely. Yeah. I mean, this is how that presents. So. What I can do in the meantime, Mr. Chair, when we figure this out.
While we're having our technical support, how about
Put the
that?
agenda up on our over.
There you go. And then we can start the meeting.
Oops.
Hey Dan, try to go back. How do you go back to the page? Oh, it's
You know?
upside down again. Wait, let me change it back. Hold on.
You know what? I just flipped something on here.
No.
Guys, will you work? Oh, hey, all right. Right at the nick. Good to go? Thank you, sir. Thanks, everybody. Welcome to the Charter Township of Van Buren Planning Commission meeting for May 10th, 2023. I call the meeting to order. Could you all please rise and take the pledge of allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Could we have a roll call, please?
Bernie Grant. Medina Atchison is excused. Jackson Paul.
Here.
Brian Cullen is also excused. And Jeff Char.
Here. We have an agenda before us this evening. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion, we approve the agenda of the Planning Commission for May 10th.
Is there support?
Support.
Any comments or discussion? All in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And the agenda is approved. We have minutes from the previous meeting of April 26, 2023. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Is there support for that motion?
Support.
Excellent. Is there any discussion of the motion? Hearing no discussion, we'll take a all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Director Power, do we have any correspondence this evening?
There's no correspondence this evening. I did start up the Zoom. I didn't see anybody participating in the Zoom, and I have no other correspondences for tonight.
Great. We do not have a public hearing scheduled this evening, but we do have some old business from our residential zoning text amendment, which we will open now. Item 1, discussion, residential zoning ordinance text amendment. The Planning Commission will be requested to continue consideration of a zoning ordinance text amendment to allow building height to be limited to the more restrictive of the following standards in zoning districts containing single-family residential dwellings, including sections 3.106, 3.107, and 3.109 of the Van Buren Township zoning ordinance. such as 35 feet as amended from the current limit of 30 feet in height, and 2.5 stories as amended from the current limit of 2 stories. We'll have some action items tonight, beginning with presentation from staff. Director Power?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. This topic is something that the Planning Commission has taken a look at a couple of different times. It was prompted by a specific application for a new residential building permit for a dwelling that would have had 2.5 stories, whereas we were discovering through the process of looking at that permit application that our limit in our zoning ordinance was 2 stories in our residential zoning districts. We also have a height limit of 30 feet, which is typically measured from the center of the front of the building grade elevation to the halfway point between an eave and a peak for a typical gable roof. So we began a separate process of revisiting that zoning ordinance section, specifically section 3.106D of the Van Buren Township zoning ordinance, to investigate whether our standards are consistent or comparable with other communities, and to start to look at whether there's a need to consider kind of uncapping that or allowing increasing to 2.5 stories or 30 to 35 feet. And so with that said, all I'm going to do with the presentation tonight is put an initial image up on the screen. Ms. Christian and I also have the full packet available to show on the screen that has additional graphics. So otherwise, I'll just turn this over to our planning consultant, Vidya Krishnan, to go over her findings.
Thank you, Director Power. As Director Power stated, we have been discussing this at least for a couple of months, and this came about as a result of one homeowner proposing something which we didn't even realize that a half-story was not permitted in our ordinance, even though the overall building height kept within the maximum feet height that was permitted. Our ordinance didn't have the option of or, it was 30 feet and 2 stories. So the Planning Commission had directed us to look into it, and we presented comparison with all of our neighboring communities, Canton and Northville, Plymouth. We looked at Ypsilanti. And in many of these communities, they don't even regulate the stories. It's either only height, or where the height and stories are regulated, it actually was 2.5 stories and 35 feet. This is especially important when you have natural features such as a lake, because there is definitely, lakeside properties do have a great change, and our ordinance clearly has definition for what a full story, a half story, and what a basement, walkout basement is. So based upon all that discussion, the Planning Commission directed us to revise the regulations to allow single-family dwellings in any district where it is permitted to have a maximum height of 35 feet and up to 2.5 stories. And that's why we have amended the R1A, R2A, R1B, R1C, and the Ag and Estates District. These are the districts where single-family homes are permitted. In addition, the Planning Commission had asked us to find some pictures of what the 2.5 stories would look like, specifically if it's a property on a lakeside. It was very difficult to find home pictures from the lake, because in most cases, people are not allowed to photograph, or the ones that were there were like in Malibu, like wasn't really comparable. So I went searching for actual building plans. So in your packet, you have examples of what 2.5 story, 35-foot homes look like. And these websites are really nice because you actually not only get the elevation, they give you a full floor plan, and they give you ceiling heights. It basically is the complete packet that tells you how they measured the height. So in the packet, there are examples of pictures, and if you should choose to send this ordinance forward, these are examples of some of the home styles or designs that you can expect to see. I would be happy to answer any questions that the Planning Commission might have.
Thank you, Ms. Krishnan. You found the same set of websites for house elevation pictures that I found. So yeah, I'd see, I was, oh, look at that.
I was surprised that I couldn't find more images of lakeside homes. I tried to go and see, but it's not like Google Street View where you can see from the street side, but there's no lake view. So all the homes that pulled up were not really comparable to us. They are not something that you can use the ordinance to base off of. So,
great. Director Power, anything else for presentation from staff?
No, I think the report that Ms. Krishnan put together gives a complete analysis, and the planning commission at this point just procedurally may opt to schedule a hearing to go over this potential zoning ordinance amendment, or they may opt to have further discussion at a later meeting. So I'll leave that up to the planning commission.
At this point, we'll move to item B, Planning Commission discussion. Commissioners, any comments, questions for staff?
It would be my suggestion that I think we're ready to move it forward to a public hearing.
And thank you guys for
Yes.
finding the pictures and showing them. And
In agreement with that, Commissioner Grant?
Yes.
I think I think that would be apropos, moving it forward to public hearing. I certainly, and just so we're clear, public hearing does not necessarily mean we need to take action on the day of the public hearing. I think it would be good to have some of the more of the commissioners here to comment on it before we took formal action, but we can absolutely schedule the public hearing. I'm in agreement on that one. I would ask that for that meeting, if we do move ahead with the public hearing, that if you could pull me up an edit of the ordinance in the actual document, like the pages that have changed, underlined. I see the intent, but I know we all like to see the context in the actual document too. Commissioners?
Make sure to have all the previous information and a strike-through version of the ordinance, so you know where the new text is being inserted.
The usual. That's what we'd like to see. Commissioners, is there a motion to recommend scheduling a public hearing for this item?
I'd like to make a motion to schedule a public hearing for the ordinance change.
Support.
Great. Any discussion? Let's have that as a roll call.
Sherry Budd,
Yes.
Bernie Grant,
Yes.
Jackson Paul, Jeff Jar.
Yes. Motion passes. Staff, please schedule the public hearing. Let's get some more input on this.
Okay, we'll do, and Mr. Chair, that date, just for everybody's reference, is likely to be June 14th or maybe June 28th, just based on the timing.
Yeah, based on the notification timing, right?
Yep.
Great. Okay, that, I believe, completes item 1, old business. We have a new business item in front of us. Item number 1, that is case 23-020 Van Buren Charter Township Accessory Gasoline Filling Station. The applicant, Van Buren Charter Township, seeks preliminary and final site plan approval to construct an accessory filling station to their existing water tower site on Tyler Road. The site's located at the southeast corner on Tyler and Quirk Road and is a 41.58 acre parcel. The proposal also includes adding an accessory above-ground fuel tank, pump station, improvements to the traffic circulation and parking, as well as lighting and landscaping. The site is zoned M1 Light Industrial District and is located at 46805 Tyler Road, tax parcel ID 83062990001701. This site being located on the south side of Tyler Road between Quirk Road and Beck Road. We have a presentation from township staff. I'm not sure if, gentlemen, if that's Mr. Akers tonight or Director Power, but if we can move forward with the presentation, that'd be wonderful.
I'll defer my comments to Director Akers on this one.
Thank you,
Well,
Director Akers.
Thank you very much. So this process is going to go just a little differently because it's an internal process. And as we were doing our internal quality controls, we reviewed for zoning compliance. So the letter before you is effectively a site plan review letter that goes through all the same information that you would typically see in a normal site plan review. So I'll go through that and then discuss our fire department review as well. So as Chairman Jar indicated, we're proposing to construct an accessory filling station on our existing water tower site, which is located on Tyler Road, just west of Township Hall. It's a 41-acre parcel. The proposal includes adding an accessory above-ground fuel tank, pump station, improvements to our traffic circulation and parking, as well as lighting and landscaping. So as indicated, the site is zoned M1 Light Industrial. Here, let me pull up the general site plan. The site is currently used by the township for a water tower, and the water tower building also has some additional storage space within it, which we utilize. The proposed plans, as indicated, are adding a filling station, an above-ground filling station on the property, which will be used to fuel township police, fire, public works, and community services vehicles. The existing fuel station at the Township Hall property behind the building will be removed as part of the project. The main reason behind the removal is due to the community center project and the building addition, which limits vehicle circulation on the site. Prior to the building addition, there was essentially a vehicle loop around the site where some of our larger vehicles, like our Vector truck and our fire truck, could easily circulate around. But with the addition of the building, the turning radiuses in our parking lot are a little tight, which was necessary for the relocation of our fuel tank. So per our zoning code, public utilities are a permitted use in the M1 zoning district, and accessory structures and uses incidental to that is also listed as a permitted use, and due to this, the fueling station is compliant with or an allowable use within that zoning district. When we look at some of the required information, there are a couple notes that we had listed in the staff report of some items that we discussed with Fishbeck, which will be added to the plans. These include the height of the tower and a few other specific notes which are required by our zoning code. Those will be included in the final plans. The dimensional requirements, including all the setbacks, have been met. We meet all of those minimal setbacks. Regarding access and circulation on the lot, there's an existing driveway on the site, as you can kind of see up here. Part of the scope of work is having the township essentially reconstruct, mill down and reconstruct this drive area to make it wider so it can accommodate some of our larger vehicles, so our Vector truck, fire truck. The driveway width at the right-of-way line is going to be 25 feet. It's going to be 24 feet down through until it starts to loop around here, where it's going to widen again to 30 feet, so we again can accommodate the turning radiuses of some of those larger vehicles. There will be the driveway widths are wide enough, so there's going to be enough distance for vehicles to pass by one another, and especially the vehicles at the fuel pump, there will be enough width for vehicles to get around if there are any large vehicles filling up at the fuel pump. So the addition of the fueling station on the township property is accessory to our primary utility use, and the improved area is far removed from other sidewalk connections near Tyler and Quirk Road. There is a conceptual plan which evaluates the location of a future water and sewer building on the site, and that's located in the site plan drawings right here. Oops, let me zoom out. So, but at this time, the future use of the site is still in question. When we were discussing this on the plans, we wanted to look at what traffic circulation would look like if this were ever to occur. But at this time, there's no specific plans in order to do this. But the reason why I bring this up is because there are a handful of items that our zoning ordinance does specify that the township's going to be asking for deferment until the future site is developed, and one of those is sidewalks. So we're going to be requesting deferment of the installation of the sidewalks along Tyler Road until a time when we fully develop the site for that future use. Under our parking requirements, it was difficult to identify what specific uses it would fit into under our parking standards. So we did what a lot of times we've done in the past, is look at what the closest fits are. Because the building was primarily used for storage, we used the calculation for warehousing as to what the square footage of the building was. And we looked at the gasoline service and service station requirements and came up from our zoning code with a specific requirement of 11 parking spaces. Based on the current use of the building, we are proposing 5 spaces and requesting a parking deferment. Requesting 7 spaces and requesting a parking deferment. The building is currently not staffed. We do have all of our staff housed here at Township Hall. We do have staff that regularly goes over there to perform maintenance on the water tower work or to move items out of the storage areas in the building, but at this time we don't have any dedicated staff to that building. So at that time, that's the rationale for us requesting the parking deferment. One improvement that's going to occur to the property That's not there right now, is we're going to be installing a barrier-free handicap parking space in compliance with the law, and we're also going to be identifying a specific loading and unloading zone. We're going to be making landscaping improvements to the site as part of this project. The calculations, which are highlighted in the staff report, are there, but effectively we're going to be adding 9 proposed deciduous trees and 5 ornamental trees on the frontage of the property. One of the items that we're going to be requesting a modification from is the requirement to plant shrubs along the frontage due to the limited scope of the project. Future use of the site is still under consideration, and due to this, we're requesting the deferment of planting the shrubs from an aesthetic standpoint. We want to make sure that when we plant shrubs, we plant them consistently across the full site and have a uniform look rather than do it half at a time. Due to this and because of the limited scope of the project, this is the rationale for us requesting the deferment to plant those at a later date. Aside from that, regarding some of our landscaping requirements, the reviews as to what the calculations are in our staff report. We are compliant with the majority of the requirements. There is a minor detail that I do want to highlight that we've addressed with our engineers, and it's going to be corrected, is that the plant schedule and the landscape plan lists the size of the evergreen white pine trees as a 3-inch caliper incorrectly. They should list the actual height of the evergreen tree, which is part of our zoning requirements as part of our standard. There is an 8-foot minimum. We are going to be requesting a 10-foot tree due to screening requirements, which we'll talk about in a sec, but that is something that we're going to be correcting. The other note that needs to be corrected is that the evergreen shrubs are required to be planted a minimum 30 inches in height, and that also needs to be specified on the site plan. The last item regarding landscaping that I want to touch on is regarding the zoning ordinance requirement to discuss an irrigation system. The township has a contractor who manages all of our landscaping for our township facilities, and they would be also servicing this site if we were to add some of the trees and plantings, and they make sure that our plants are effectively watered. One of the other items I wanted to highlight is typically with a lot of these projects, you would see engineering reviews and some extensive stormwater calculations and requirements. We've consulted with our engineers regarding those requirements from Wayne County, and due to the limited scope and nature of the project, we are not subject to the stormwater ordinance requirements, and we're not subject to some of those permitting requirements. So that was one of the reasons why we're not doing that. We are submitting to Wayne County for a right-of-way permit in order to reconstruct the driveway, and it's my understanding those applications have been submitted to them for review. Regarding lighting, the site plan lists the height of the light fixtures at 25 feet, which are compliant with our zoning code, and does indicate that the photometrics for one of the lights does extend to the property line. It does not exceed that 0.5-foot candles. We have directed our engineers to revise the site plan to depict the photometric plans to the property line for the secondary area that's around the fuel pump. Based on the height and the lighting fixtures that are there, we don't anticipate there being any issues, but those site plans will be revised and that will be addressed before any construction occurs. The last few items I want to discuss are related primarily to fencing and screening, because as you know, our zoning ordinance has a requirement that if you have a fuel storage tank or related incidental equipment, it is required to be totally enclosed and screened from view off-site. So the site plan depicts a 10-foot tall screening fence around the fuel tank to accomplish this. The zoning ordinance specifies that the height of the fence is allowable up to 8 feet with planning commission authorization. And because of that, we're requesting the height be authorized to 8 feet to allow for maximum screening of the fuel tank. The fence material is proposed as a fully screened fence with vinyl posts and horizontal composite boards. I did discuss this with our planning consultant, Vidya Krishnan, and she had recommended this as an alternative to a masonry wall. I did want to show the commission an image of what that wall would look like. And so here it is right here. There are various color options that the company that we spec the drawing from has, that in our goal would be looking at a color that is similar in color to the water tower, as to not stand out and to effectively screen the tank. So as I had indicated before, looking at the site plan, because the fuel tank is approximately, with all the equipment, will be approximately 10 feet tall, what we're going to be doing to accomplish the screening from the adjacent property. Let me find the landscape plans. Over on this west boundary of the property here, there's a series of evergreen plantings. What we're going to be requesting as part of this project is to have those evergreen trees be planted at 10 feet in height. So that way that any visibility of the fuel tank or any of the above equipment will be fully screened. The last item I wanted to highlight with screening is that there is a proposed security fence around the fuel tank. It is required by code to have that security fence around the fuel tank. It's going to be fully screened by the existing fence. So because of that, we are going to be requesting that that fence be a chain link fence, a black vinyl coated chain link fence, to make sure that we're matching the color of the existing screening fence that's already around the water tower. The zoning ordinance does allow the planning commission to approve non-decorative fences in the side or rear yards, provided they are not directly visible from the public right-of-way. As this fence is fully enclosed on 3 sides and visually obstructed from the water tower, this is the rationale for requesting this allowance. So that concludes my zoning summary. I have a recommendation in the staff report. There's 9 conditions based on the items we discussed. One of the other items I wanted to highlight and discuss was our fire department report. We did ask our fire department to review these site plans as well for compliance with NFPA. They did review them last week, and they were reviewed for compliance with our fire code. So the fire department has recommended approval with a couple exceptions regarding approved emergency controls, signage, and operating instructions and fire extinguishers, which will all be identified and updated onto the site plan. One of the other comments was regarding a diesel exhaust fluid tank, which is proposed on the site plan as well. So the existing set of site plans address that. They also included the building plans for the fuel tank and some of the other requirements. At this time, that concludes my summary. I'm happy to answer any questions that the Planning Commission may have.
Great, thank you, Director Akers. Planning Commission, we are to discussion. Anyone have any salient points they wish to raise? Commissioner Grant, any questions tonight?
Madam Chair, I do have some questions.
Yes, sir, please.
Maybe a couple. You're talking about deferring the sidewalk. Is that along Tyler Road?
Yes.
Okay. What do you consider to be full development?
Intended future use of the site where we either have a significant building like a water and sewer building, or if the property ever develops into a park, which was the other item that had been under discussion.
So the only thing I would say is I know that we put a lot of pressure on anybody that comes in and develops buildings in Van Buren Township, and it's very rare. I mean, I've never even, quite frankly, heard of us deferring anybody's sidewalks. And given the fact that the township can't really identify when that development may or may not take place, or if ever, it seems like we should probably have the sidewalks put in so that they start to tie. I know that the ball fields are down the other road, but maybe eventually over time, things might tie into there where people can walk, from one park to the ball field. So that would be the one comment I would make. I can maybe understand the landscaping a little bit, but if you put the sidewalks in, it seems like maybe the landscaping would go along with it. That's my comment and question.
Commissioners, any other questions or comments? I'll comment on the sidewalk issue. You know, whenever you come asking for a sidewalk deferral, you're going to get a furrowed brow. During your discussion, Director Akers, you had a picture up of the future development of the site, right? There was that slide that showed the potential DPW building, yeah?
Yes, let me pull it up.
Could you, no, that's the slide I'm talking about. Could you show just the area of the property that's being developed? None of that pavement for that future building's going in, right?
Right.
This is really, the only change is a driveway and a very small building, a very small outdoor filling station, which is really accessory to the existing building, which is the water tower.
Yes.
So, I'm normally the one that has to say, no, you're gonna put the sidewalk in. But I don't think this is a full site plan redevelopment. I think this is an accessory structure to a pre-existing building. And now, while I think the sidewalks would be great to go in, and when the DPW building happens, the sidewalks will need to go in. But
Absolutely.
for this, I really feel like it's an accessory building to an essential service, and it maybe isn't time to put the sidewalks in yet because of the future development. That's my view on it. And normally I'm not on that side of it. What do you think of that, Mr.
Well,
Grant?
no, I do have a couple of follow-ups to that, and that is, I'm thinking, the original water tower, when that went in, was there ever any deferment for sidewalks at that point in time? Or was it even required when that went in?
And I'm not certain if it ever went through site plan review at the time. I know because it's a public utility, it kind of flirts with that essential services line.
Definition, yeah.
I know with this project, one of our goals was to make sure that we were doing what we could to come bring the site into compliance with the zoning ordinance standards that we had, and make sure that the planning commission had the opportunity to review it, and it went through our formal procedures like we require everyone else to.
So when this new building goes, do you know what the timeline is for the new building?
There is no timeline.
So it could never get put in?
It could never get put in.
It will, but right now, there's not a time, yeah.
So the idea is that the sidewalks go in when that building goes up?
Yes.
On both
yes,
Tyler Road and the one that's facing it?
Yes.
I would assume so.
Okay.
But in that instance, I would be back to my
I'm
normal.
I'm just saying it.
In that instance, I would absolutely think that the sidewalks would have to go
Yes.
in. But I know you tried to figure out if this, what the use is, and you came up with, well, maybe it's like warehousing. I really think it's an essential services use, and that really does exempt, in our zoning code, that really exempts you from a lot of those type of requirements. And so when we're talking about the parking requirements as well, I think the amount of parking that you have there will be fine for it. I don't think we need more. And again, I really think it's more of an essential service use, which has an even less strict parking requirement. So commissioners, are you guys okay with?
I would agree with
the
that.
parking,
Yeah,
the parking
I would
requirement?
agree.
Yeah, I think I'm okay with it too. I really don't have any other comments myself. Commissioner? Yes.
I would agree with your idea with the sidewalk. I do see the reasoning for do it because it's very little that it's doing it, and it is an area that is secured right now that most people aren't walking there.
I think the
I
plan.
would agree with that.
Please.
I think the Planning Commission can also make a distinction because, like you said, you have never really waived the sidewalk on any property. The fact that in this case, it is an uninhabited site. There is really nobody on that site at all. It is basically people coming, doing the fueling, and leaving the site. It is not somebody who's going to be there on the site and possibly walking down the sidewalk till Belleville Road or something. So that separates it from literally every other site that we review, whether commercial, industrial, or residential, because we have people and sidewalks are intended as pedestrian connectivity. And for that reason, the sidewalks were not exempted in any portion of the community center building that was being
That's right.
added in the back.
We had sidewalks in the entire community center. It
So I
was-
think you can make a clear distinction between this use and anything else where sidewalk was never waived.
And he said that when the next building goes in, the sidewalks go in.
Yes,
which
the moment
I'm
people
fine
go
with
into the
that.
building.
Yeah, I'm good.
Clear, this fueling station, it's not a public gas station.
Right.
It's a municipal fueling depot for our municipal vehicles. Absolutely not You're not going to roll your car up there. I'm not going to say we need to have EV charging stations or, it's just a municipal
No,
fueling station.
I would only make one comment about that, and that is, I understand that that's very true. The intent of sidewalks isn't to gain access to the fueling station.
True.
The intent of the sidewalks is to tie together public spaces that people can get to without having to walk across grass or walk out on the road. So, I can easily see people coming from the park, maybe walking over to the ball fields and using that sidewalk eventually when it gets put in, and that whole strip of, along Tyler Road gets developed. So,
Any more discussion points? At this point, we have on our agenda an opportunity for public comment. Is there anyone in attendance tonight that wishes to speak to the issue? Or anyone? Yes, sir, please come to the podium, state your name.
Yes, my name is Wade Hoppy. I'm an architect. I'm not here for this project. I'm here for the next project. But as I'm listening, the last point you made is really good, that sidewalks are put in for pedestrian connectivity for the public, not for the owner of the property. And how many times have I and you seen private development say, the people in my site will never use that sidewalk?
Absolutely.
That's beside the point. We put the sidewalk in for the public. And Ron and I have worked together before, so I have nothing against Ron. I don't want to sound like that. But asking for 8 deferments, I've never seen a private development be granted 8 deferments. That's never happened, not in my experience. And I've lived here for 30 years. So it just seems like if you proceed in this direction, it looks like you're treating the public development differently than you would treat a private developer. Also, you said that it's an essential service, which is true. The water tower is an essential service, but it's almost the largest structure in Van Buren Township. I mean, essential service was supposed to be like there's a small substation on a site, right? That's an essential service that we generally think of when we look at the zoning ordinance. But this is a significant construction. In my opinion, they should have put the sidewalk in when they put the tower in. So anyways, those are my thoughts. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else in attendance tonight that would like to speak to the issue? Director Power, is there anyone on Zoom?
Well, nobody watching us on Zoom.
through the chair, I have another question.
Sure, absolutely. I'll recognize.
Can we put a time, given the fact that maybe this other building may never happen, can we put a timeline on the sidewalk improvements? There's, that within the next 5 years, it has to happen regardless of what construction occurs on that property?
I think that approach has been used before. I think in this case, it would make sense to link it to a future development, just because of the potential future programming of the site and the increased usage. It's really up to the Planning Commission. I think there have been cases, rarely, where there have been 5 or so year sunsets on sidewalks. I think I'd defer to the Planning Commission to evaluate the benefit of that.
One of the other items that I didn't bring up that I do want to highlight is the township having sidewalks along the stretch of Tyler Road between Haggerty and back has always been, or at least the last several years, has been a priority of the township. We've applied for grants several times in order to get funding and plan for it and look at what right-of-way acquisition is needed on some of the stretches towards the east. However, towards the west is also a component of it too, because you have park space, you have neighborhoods that are that way as well. So we have been seeking opportunities to do this, and we'll continue to do so.
I have one follow-on question. if a motion were to come across that did not give you the deferral on the sidewalk, would you be, how would you like to handle that? If, do you need to have more time to go back and consider the cost estimate on your project? Do you want us to approve it without the sidewalk, or what are your thoughts? This is a question I would normally ask staff, so I'm.
Oh, no, I think if the planning commission came forward with a motion and an indication that, we really felt that the township should be investing in sidewalks along this stretch of the frontage of the property, we would absolutely take it back, get costs, and do what we need to do to be compliant with our code and handle it.
Okay.
We should get a good deal. We currently have concrete contractors running around putting sidewalks in as we speak.
Yes.
Okay, well, if there's no more consideration or discussion among the planning commission, do we have a motion? Do we have a motion to grant preliminary final site plan with conditions?
I guess I just want to make sure that, I want to know how on board everybody is, or what their opinion is regarding the sidewalks at this point in time before we put any conditions on it.
Fair enough. It's a good point of discussion. Do you want to comment on that?
Well, I guess my comment would be what I would feel before, but if the planning commission really thinks it's necessary to prove that they're not, they do what everybody else does, then I would say, well, then let's put a time constraint on it.
I would agree with that.
That's where I'm leaning.
Yeah.
I think like you
would.
said, a 5-year sunset on the deferral.
Mhm.
Well, I think that's okay too. I think I said my position on it was that I really feel like this is a very small accessory construction on a much larger site. And if this was a much larger building or an occupied building, it would necessitate triggering the sidewalk rule. But since this is a smaller accessory to what's essentially a much larger parcel, I could see deferring the sidewalk until such time as greater construction. But I am absolutely willing to entertain any motion at this time.
Well, I'm trusting that they're building that other project within 5 years.
Well, at this time, I would say let's have a motion if there's one available.
Okay, I'd like, are we doing both preliminary and final?
Yes.
I think that's what the applicant, the staff has asked for.
Want to confirm?
That's what's on the table.
So I'd like to make a motion to grant preliminary and final site plan approval to construct an accessory filling station to the existing water tower site located at 46805 Tyler Road, tax parcel ID number 83062990001, 701. The site is zoned M1, light industrial, and in accordance with the Planning Commission's letter, if I can find it. Excuse me. It would be dated April 24th, 2023.
Director Akers, what was the date on that?
View date and
May
There-
4th, looks like.
Yes, so the review date for the site plan letter was May 4th, and the review letter for the fire department was
May 4th.
May 3rd, I believe.
it's 4th on the fire department one. In accordance with the Van Buren Charter Township letter, review date May 4th, and the Van Buren Township Fire Department letter dated May 4th, 2023. And with the stipulation that the sidewalks are to be have a timeline placement on them of 5 years, and at this point, they can be deferred and adhere to that timeline.
Is there support for that motion? Support. Any discussion on that motion? Yes, sir.
And question for that motion. It was fairly straightforward, but I just recognize that there's a lot of frontage on both Tyler Road and Beck Road. Is the intent of the planning commission to enforce within 5 years on both frontages or just Tyler Road?
I would think it'd be both.
Just wanted to clarify that.
Through the chair, do the other conditions that he asked for need to be mentioned, or just saying that you're referring to that letter, is that enough?
I would think it's referring to the letter should be enough. It's the entire letter.
Subject to the conditions in the letter of staff, May 4th, 2023,
Okay.
with your additional condition.
Right.
You are still in support of the motion as stated? Okay. If there's hearing no more discussion, do we have support for that motion? We do. We have support. Let's have a roll call vote.
Sherry Budd,
Yes.
Bernie Grant,
Yes.
Jackson Paul,
Yes.
Jeff Char.
Yes.
Thank you.
You. Okay, this brings us to new business, item number 2. This is case 23025, French Landing Park Boardwalk / dock improvements. The applicant, Van Buren Charter Township, seeks site plan approval to remove an existing elevated boardwalk and dock structure and replace it with a new boardwalk and dock structure. The structure will be approximately 202 feet in length, will extend approximately 23 feet from the shore, and will have a total combined area of approximately 2,691 square feet. The proposed improvements require site plan review by the Van Buren Township Planning Commission per section 3.120 C2BI of the Van Buren Township zoning ordinance. The location is at 12090 through 12100 Haggerty Road and is tax parcel ID 83094 01021600 and 8309501022130. The site's located on the west side of Haggerty Road between Alden Road and the south I-94 service drive. I believe we have a presentation from township staff.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. While the slides load up, I will go through a summary of the project that's being proposed by applicant Van Buren Charter Township. The applicant seeks to gain site plan approval to remove an existing elevated boardwalk and dock structure and replace it with a new boardwalk and dock structure in roughly the same location, but with a slightly expanded footprint. The property, again, is located on Belleville Lake Township property, or otherwise known as Township Lake property, adjacent to the French Landing Park. On this image, you can see the general location oriented with east on the top of the screen, so north is to the left, which is roughly the same orientation as the site plans that were included in your packet. The French Landing Park property includes 2 parcels, and that's why there are 2 parcels listed in this report. However, the improvements primarily exist on the parcel to the south, which is 12100 Haggerty Road. So this shows the split between those 2 parcels, which include 12090 and 12100 Haggerty Road. You can see French Landing Dam on the south or right side of that screen. The upland parcels that French Landing Park sits on are zoned R1C, Single Family Residential District. Despite this single family zoning designation of the upland parcel, because the parcel is used as a public park, the correlating lakeshore property or Township Lake property is zoned what we call Belleville Lake Shoreline District B, or non-single family residential, so BLB. The proposed use and the past use that's being replaced is meeting a definition in our Belleville Lake Shoreline District's ordinance that includes docks, piers, landings, boardwalks, catwalks, or similar features that can accommodate no more than 6 watercraft in total at one time on a single parcel. There's a more extensive definition that I won't go into. Just to be clear, this proposal involves no dockage of watercraft. That's just a definition that catches any such features that include watercraft. The general term for this structure has been called a dock in the past, and that's why it's labeled as such, but it's not really a dock for boating. It's more of a boardwalk structure. The existing footprint, just measured roughly by staff of the existing structure, is roughly 1,691 square feet, and the proposed expanded structure will be about 2,691 square feet. I want to show you some pictures that were provided by one of the people representing the applicant group, which is our Deputy Community Services Director, Tammy Doring, just showing some of the existing conditions of the boardwalk that's there presently. In no particular order, I probably randomized the order that Tammy gave these to me in, but showing just the condition of the current boardwalk structure. There's been significant discussion with the Township Board in recent years about the various improvements at French Landing Park, and this is certainly one of the more significant improvements. So you can see the existing conditions here. I'm glad to go back to these images. But kind of zooming out to the full site view, there are a number of improvements at French Landing Park, including the recent reconstruction of the parking area, the hard surfacing, and a tensile structure that was built that Planning Commission was made aware of in 2021 as part of what are called Phase 1 improvements. The footprint of the proposed dock structure is shown kind of at the lower right corner of this image, and that's actually the latest version of a plan sheet that I placed in front of you tonight. So it's just a more a broader view and a revised version of the site plan drawings that were in your packet. The blue line on that image roughly demonstrates the split between those two parcels that French Landing Park sits on, and those are just past plat boundaries. With this image on the screen, I'll focus on some of the site plan review requirements for improvements in the Belleville Lake Shoreline District zoning ordinance. Again, this type of structure requires site plan review by the Planning Commission. It does not require special approval or board approval or a public hearing, but it does require site plan review, and that's why we're here tonight. I'll briefly go over the application requirements and kind of audit them and let you know if there are any conditions related to them. A complete application form has been provided. A site plan that was dated October 30th of 2022 was provided. And then there was a revised sheet to that was provided more recently, as I mentioned. There's a separate plan sheet labeled L3 from a submittal for the overall Phase 1 improvements in French Landing Park. That includes the expanded view frame around this improvement, the boundaries of the upland lots, and the location of existing structures within 50 feet of the proposed installation. The final issued for construction plan set will need to have this level of detail, a plan sheet that shows this improvement in relation to the other features on the site. So that's more of just a informational comment. The sheet should also include the parcel zoning as R1C and the adjacent lakeshore property as BLB in terms of zoning. A copy of the existing survey from the abutting upland property and photographs of the existing conditions were provided. An existing survey was provided, and photographs of the site have been taken by staff as mentioned. The Van Buren Township zoning ordinance also calls for plans, elevations, and section drawings with dimensions showing the height, length, width, distance to lot lines, and configuration of the proposed installation. Sheet A101 that was submitted with this application shows the total length of 202 feet, the maximum extension into the lake of 23.5 feet. So there's a point roughly here, if you can see that little cursor at the bottom right of the screen, that's kind of the furthest extent of the dock structure at 23.5 feet into the lake, whereas 40 is allowed, permitted under the zoning ordinance. And then sheets A101 and A102 also provide various details indicating the height of the structure. From the top of the water to the top elevation of the proposed boardwalk posts, there's roughly a 3.5-foot tall railing, and then the height varies from 9.5 to 10 feet to the bottom. As far as construction materials, the detail sheet submitted with this plan set includes the dock surface or boardwalk surface being primarily 1 inch by 6 inch Trex decking. The primary post and frame materials of the railing will also be Trex. And there is a example tonight of the railing material, which includes a transparent 4x4 woven steel barrier, which will be zinc primed and powder coated matte black. The materials are consistent with the character of the surrounding site and aesthetically appropriate in staff's interpretation. I did ask that a sample of the Trex decking surface materials be provided if the Planning Commission so desires, or the railing material, which the railing material was provided tonight. There is no additional dock length exception or any other exceptions that are requested here. There is a description of the existing shoreline features on the site plan that you see on the screen. And this proposed site plan does not include details on the shoreline stabilization that will be associated with some of the improvements on site, although there is a separate application that is being reviewed by staff for for roughly 400 cubic yards of riprap shoreline stabilization and wooden habitat structures, which are required by Eagle. The applicant has submitted the materials necessary for Eagle approval and has actually synchronized their review with Eagle with this part of the review process. So Eagle has actually notified the township that their permit is issued as of May 3rd, I believe. So Eagle's permit has been issued, and additionally, the applicant has also been working closely with the FERC licensee of the dam, which is Eagle Creek. So the dam operator is well aware of the project, and they will continue to be moving forward. There are some additional requirements pertaining to these types of improvements in the Township Lake property. I will mention those here. An adequate site plan had to be provided. I'll just summarize that was provided. A plan set, which includes the design professional seal, should be provided or must be provided with the final issued for construction set. A use statement should be added to the final for construction site plan, although the use is very clearly identified in the plan set, so that's not an area of concern. There are small gaps in where the dock or the extended boardwalk as it approaches the shore connects to the concrete, so there will need to be just some additional minor detail with the final issued for construction set that shows essentially that there's an accessible approach there. And then the last condition in this section is that the proposed lake light solar deck lights that are listed in the application meet the township's applicable standards of the township's lighting ordinance, or section 8105 of the zoning ordinance. These are inset lights that should have a minimal impact on the surrounding properties. The Planning Commission is obligated to agree with review criteria for any Belleville Lake Shoreline District improvement, and so I'll run through those briefly. Those are that the application can demonstrate compliance with all the requirements of section 3120D of the zoning ordinance, which are development standards for the Belleville Lake Shoreline Districts, and all other applicable requirements of the zoning ordinance. And the structure shall not unreasonably interfere with the adjacent property owners or public's use and enjoyment of the waters of Belleville Lake. The facilities have to be so designated as to protect the neighboring property owners from the negative off-site impacts. The structures will not create a risk to the health, safety, welfare of persons who will use Belleville Lake for recreational purposes, and will not interfere with safe navigation on the lake. That the structures will be constructed of materials which will not impair the water quality, water flow, or water levels of Belleville Lake. That to the extent feasible, the structures shall protect and enhance the scenic, recreational, and environmental quality of Belleville Lake. That non-commercial multi-docking facilities shall be separated from one another to avoid overcrowding and excessive boat traffic on the lake. And this is not a concern because this improvement is not a docking facility with boat traffic. That consideration shall be given to maintaining consistency with the upland zoning and land use, and the proposed boardwalk and dock structure has been there as an amenity for the upland uses and will continue to be. And finally, the uses approved shall be consistent with the primary goal of permitting reasonable use by lake residents and landowners. In staff's interpretation, all of these criteria are met. I open that up to the discussion of the Planning Commission, of course. And then there are just a couple of additional specific standards for development regulations specific to boardwalks, and those include that the boardwalk can be extended to the site's side lot lines under the development standards, and this structure will not extend beyond the site's adjacent lot line, so that condition is met. And then the use will not involve any overnight anchorage, rentals of watercraft, or fences on township lake property, which will be the case. And so with the information that's been provided with this request, my recommendation is for conditional approval with a few minor conditions that can be met with the final issued for construction set of plans. One, that the description of the proposed use should be added to the site plan, that the material sample of the decking materials shall be provided to the satisfaction of the Planning Commission, that prior to construction, a plan set which includes the design professional's seal must be provided, that there are some additional details on sheet A101 to demonstrate accessible approaches in two small gap areas, and that the solar deck lights listed on sheet E101 shall meet all standards of section 8.105 of the Van Buren Township zoning ordinance, and that the proposed work must be completed in accordance with any applicable Eagle and FERC requirements. With that being said, I'm happy to answer any questions or otherwise to invite the applicant to speak about their project.
Director Power. Would the applicant care to come up and talk about the project or show us any materials?
Director Power stole my thunder a little bit with everything I was going to say. So I don't necessarily have a ton to add. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Elizabeth Rennell. I'm the Director of Community Services for Van Buren Township. But we've been working on French Landing Park since we developed the master plan back in 2019. And this dock structure is or boardwalk structure is one of the last pieces of the puzzle. So we're really excited to hopefully move this project forward. We have Mark Russell here from PEA Group and Wade Hoppy from Hoppy Design if the Planning Commission would like to ask them any questions as well. But I'll show you the sample of the mesh structure inside. So Wade can correct me, but this isn't representative, it's going to be Trex. But this wire structure is detailed in the plans. Is there any questions we'd be happy to answer?
Excellent. Thank you. Planning Commission, we are to open discussion. Any questions or comments about the material? Or
To
from
the chair.
applicant? Yes.
I would make a comment because going by that area for a number of years and watching it develop over the last few years, it has become, excuse me, a very beautiful place for people to pull in, be able to observe the lake, the canvas structure for the shade structure, and with the kayak docks that are going to be coming in there, and the landscaping and all the different sidewalks that are put in. And of course, the restaurant has been there, and now to finally have the dock finished up, it's really quite a nice thing for people to come up Haggerty Road when they're coming into the township. So you guys done a good job out there, and it looks very, very nice.
Thank you, Treasurer Bud.
So noted. Any other comments from our commission this evening? I have a question about the grading material. Is that a wire or a rod or the fencing there? What is it?
I think Wade's going to help us out with this one.
He's pulling out an architectural sheet, so I think he will.
Sure. Yeah. So that is a product made by a company called Smoky Mountain Hog Railing.
Suitable for?
It's a 4x4 woven 1/4-inch diameter steel wire
Okay.
sandwiched in a metal rail. The railing goes around the perimeter, holds it in place, and it's all welded in place.
Great, non-flammable, shouldn't break or weather.
That's correct. It will be zinc primed and powder coated. So that's a pretty good coating to make sure that it doesn't rust.
Good. Do we have a expected lifespan for the Trex and this fencing material? Are they about the same lifespan?
Trex will probably outlive both of us. This is metal, of course, and it's sitting over the top of water, so we're doing our best to coat it.
Sure.
But anywhere that the metal gets nicked, then it's susceptible to corrosion.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
but the nice thing is that we've designed it so that the posts are going close enough together that there will be a panel, right? So you got a frame that goes in, and this mesh goes into the frame, and the frame is not. What do I want to say? The rest of the railing is not dependent on the frame that goes in. So you can pull one frame out, put a new one in. You're not demolishing the entire thing in order to do that. That's the way it's designed. So if something does happen, say for example, somebody vandalizes it, they come in and they just, they bend it all to pieces, and you want to replace that, you're going to pull out one of the frames, order some more of this mesh, reinstall it, put it back in, and you're good to go.
Great. I'm glad you thought of that in this project,
Yeah.
and that's what I was
Yeah.
getting to. So
Because there are vandals, right? But some of what we see out there today was vandalism. Other parts of it were just, it's outlived its useful life, so.
absolutely. Thanks. And I'll also comment, a long time ago, I used to be responsible for cutting the grass in that park. And I'll tell you, boy, it looks a lot better today than it did. I won't say how long ago that was. It was a while. So I'm very, very happy to see the boardwalk being updated, and I think it's going to look great. Any other comments or questions from the commission? And at this time, if there are any public comment from anyone in the audience this evening on this item? I don't see any. Director Power, any Zoom? At this time, the Planning Commission is to consider approval of the preliminary and final site plan. Is there a motion on the table forthcoming? Gentlemen?
I'd like to make a motion to approve preliminary and final site plan approval to replace the existing elevated boardwalk and dock structure with a new boardwalk and dock structure, which will be approximately 202 feet in length and will extend 23.5 feet from the shoreline and have a total combined area of approximately 2,691 square feet. The location is 12090-12100 Haggerty Road, tax parcel ID number 83094010216000 and 83095010221300. Located at the west side of Haggerty Road between Alden Road and South I-94, and in accordance to the conditions, in compliance with the conditions stated in the Van Buren Charter Township letter memo dated May 3rd, 2023.
Excellent. Is there support for the motion? I hear support for the motion. Is there discussion of the motion this evening? I have no further discussion of the motion. Could we have a roll call vote, please?
Paul?
Yes.
Yes.
Sherry Budd?
Yes.
Jeff Jar?
Yes. Good luck on the construction. We look forward to seeing it soon. We have no more new items on the agenda for this evening. Is there any general discussion or updates from any of the commissioners? Staff?
Mr. Chair, I just would like to call to attention one minor clarification on the previous case regarding the fuel tank or filling station. I mistakenly, in my mind's eye, thought that this property had frontage on Beck Road. It does not have frontage on Beck Road. If you look at the parcel fabric here, for some reason, I thought that was actually Beck Road frontage. It's just the access drive for the site. So I don't think it matters much, but you can disregard the concern about the frontage on Beck Road.
I think that's consistent with the intent of the commissioner's previous motion. Excellent. I'll throw out there one more comment on our park. I really like those solar dock lights. Those are nice. I think those will look very good too. I know I wanted to mention that, but they really look good. And I look forward to seeing that area have a little better lighting. I had one general question. Do you know what the construction is going on up on Rawsonville Road by the Tim Hortons and by the Rawsonville Road Village Historical sign? I think there's a road coming in there. Is that an access road? Are you familiar with what I'm talking about, Director Bauer?
There are a couple of properties for sale in that area, but I don't think it pertains to those. Maybe
It might be our section of Iron Belt Trail that runs from Rawsonville outside those fast food restaurants, and it runs all the way through Van Buren Park up until the saddle.
Great.
Probably
I
that
saw
one.
it the other day and thought, someone's going to have to move the sign. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director.
If there is no more general discussion, Director Power?
I do have one
Oh,
other
please.
item, just a reminder, and I think our planning commission has responded, many of you have responded, but we will be trying to lock in a date for our redevelopment ready communities workshop. So that's going to be a major initiative where we have an open discussion about some of our existing economic conditions and trends in the township and desires for future economic growth. So that's on June 8th at 5 o'clock is the tentative start time for that. Following the open house workshop, there will be a training by our planning consultant at roughly 7 o'clock.
This planning consultant?
This planning consultant and her team, that's right.
Want another one?
No, I do not. Thank you, Director Power.
Thank you.
Any further discussion before I entertain a motion to adjourn? Hearing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Excellent. All in favor say aye. Aye. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
For RRC certification, we are supposed to do a training session, but I don't want to do the usual planning commission ZB